Nice food.
Sorry, I'm just walking up the stairs into work. It's actually good. Chili con carne. I made it for stew and then I pilfered one of the meals.
Yeah, nice. How's the week been?
Yeah, good. Just chugging along, just getting things organised and doing things. Standard. How are you?
Awesome. Just trying to get a bit more marketing done up. Gonna try and scale my business a bit more. So just working on that.
Awesome.
How'd you go with getting things sorted for the person from the US?
Yeah, no, really good, really good. It was just more that it was excitement. I just wanted to get my thoughts, my thoughts and my ducks in a row before I chatted to Jill. But it was no, it was good. It was really good. Hang on, there we go. No, it was really good. It's really exciting. We've we should be able to confirm things with her. Our chat with her is next Wednesday morning our time. So we've already spoken a couple of times before, but not with said person, just her crew. So she's really keen, which is awesome. So we should be able to get most things wrapped up next Wednesday, which is really cool. Yeah. Yeah, really exciting actually. Had some ticket sales already come through and really good feedback and yeah, really good.
Cool. Love it. How are you, Stacey?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's news?
Oh, lots.
Hit me with it.
I've taken up a job opportunity, which means I'll be resigning from the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one. We get another puppy tonight. So we're picking up another dog. Well, she's 6 months, so she's not tiny, but she's still puppy. So Duke gets a friend. I'm super excited. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Finally, he has someone to hang out with and not just give us sad eyes all the time. And yeah, just been moving boxes back and forward, helping my mum move some stuff around. She's down in Wollongong at the moment and she needs to move her stuff into some storage. So that's been my week.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
What's the new job?
Going into a strength and conditioning specialised gym. It's a studio gym and it specialises in obstacle course racing, so Achievable Fitness Services. So that's what I run my own business around, obstacle course racing. So this has been a standing offer from the gym owner for the past 6 months, and it's just not been the right timing to take it on. But a couple things towards the end of last year and just not so many connections with the gym anymore, and it's time to look at doing my own thing and keeping myself happy instead of hanging on to other people's hopes and dreams.
Cool. Exciting times then.
Bit of a jump. It's a bit scary. I'm looking forward to it though. Yeah.
Are you going to take all your current clients across? Is it close enough to be able to do that?
Legally, I'm not allowed to ask them, as we know, but it is something that I would like to give them the offer to. I would like to have them come across. I'm able to come and let them have a trial session there just to see how they like it, but I want it to be a good fit for them as it is for me.
So non-compete clause is not something that you can actually hold up.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's like the biggest joke in the whole sales community ever existed on life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's in every contract to try and protect and discourage it. There's no legal precedence to be able to actually follow up on it, and they can only follow up on it if they're just really pissed off and they want to pursue it legally because you pissed them off.
I don't think I've seen anyone off in saying that. That's not. Yeah, I don't really want to piss anyone off.
All you've got to do though is if people ask you where you're going, is just tell them. And that's it. You just can't be seen to be sending them emails or saying to them, hey, you should be leaving this gym and coming to train with me now.
No,
stuff like that. And no one does that anyway.
No, my idea on it was to kind of say, look, you know, legally I can't ask you to come with me, but I can let you know where I'll be. And if you'd like for a trial session, then it is an opportunity there.
I don't even, no one can stop you earning an income.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. It's interesting. I always find it funny because fitness industries where it's like, it's put into every single contract. And I've never heard of anyone pursuing it, let alone being able to get it through, because everyone knows that there's no legal precedence to be able to do it.
Okay.
They use it in recruiting as well, and they'll just send you like a shitty letter when you leave as soon as you put up a job ad reminding you of it. But I think there's only been, in like case law, there was like 2 instances where Hayes successfully sued someone, and it was only because they were legitimately sending emails saying, don't use this company, use this company. Like there was premeditated planning of removal of database. So
wow. Yeah. So it takes a fair amount for it to be an actual issue.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Sweet. Kick your goals then. Sweet. Is there anything you guys want to talk about today?
No, I have to leave the call at about 5 to 12 hours. I've got a client. For 5 to 2, not 5 to 12, sorry.
I'm like, fuck, this is going to be a long call if we're finishing at midnight. Better get some more water.
Get your dinner ready.
Yeah. Anything you want to talk about, Stacey?
I want to say how to put my resignation letter in.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. The emotion behind the resignation letter and how to write it and hand it professionally without breaking down, basically. Because I enjoy, my manager is not the reason why I'm leaving, it's the rest of the team, to be very honest. They've been, I've not felt so great about them for a little while.
Yeah. So what's the fear that you have?
I don't want them to get in trouble. Yeah.
Why?
Because I respect them as people.
Who is it? Who's your manager?
Megan.
Megan. Yeah.
Megan Smith, yeah.
Interesting. So why do you think that will impact someone else?
Me leaving? Because I would like to speak to Megan openly and honestly about how I've felt about a few situations that have been developing. And I see that what's been happening has not been purposeful, but it's not been mindful. And not a lot of people kind of see that difference. So I don't want, I suppose, Megan to not see the difference and take it the wrong way.
So what are you creating in that instance?
Sorry, say it again.
So what are you creating in that instance?
What am I creating? Fear.
What else?
Yeah. Pardon me. Fear is the big one.
Is fear real?
And
so fear is ultimately just a distortion of about a reality that we don't want to step into. So we give it all this emotional attention around an outcome where we have an attachment to it not being a specific way.
Okay.
So the whole point is when we start to create energy around that, well, then that impacts us, but then that impacts us when we have that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Because if we bring the element of fear and the distortions that we've created around that experience to that conversation, well, yeah, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to be able to take a step back and become aware of what's actually going on in that instance.
Yeah.
So the fear is the mechanism of Megan creating distortions around how you communicate that to her, which comes back to the foundation of you taking ownership and responsibility for communicating to her the reasons and taking ownership and responsibility for her understanding that, not just hearing what you say.
Yeah.
So it's creating that deeper level of understanding to be able to communicate exactly why that is.
Yeah.
To create that open flow of communication so that ultimately that relationship can continue.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So the thing to just be aware of is how quickly do we start to create this entire story or this entire narrative of how something's going to go and how we don't want it to happen.
That was pretty instant when I made the decision to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And why is that? What's that based on?
There's a couple things. Not feeling, I suppose, worthy of the new position. Feeling like I should be keeping myself in a position that I'm not 100% happy in. That I've been, after a breakaway, I've realized that I'm not happy there. And then, yeah, just again, fear of, I suppose, what other people think of me.
Mm-hmm. And what will they think of you?
For going to a specialized position and doing what I do, they'll think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And
I hope that's what they think.
And what do you not hope that they think?
That I didn't do all I could, that I'm leaving for... Maybe get off the couch. Oi. Sorry, cats. We're trying to keep them away from scratching the couch. Yeah, so that I hope they don't think that I didn't do all I could, that I didn't do as much that I was able, that I didn't try. So I feel like I've tried everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So why does it matter what other people think?
Because I respect them as people.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been close as a close-knit group. I respect what they think.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So what do you think the limitation with all of that is?
I can't control what they think.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Why do you need to create an element of control? That was a big sigh.
Yeah, I'm trying to put words on it. I need to correct that. I do. I need to. Because I want people to like me.
Mm-hmm. Why do you want people to like you?
No one did in high school.
No No one did in high school, eh? That's an interesting one.
Yeah. That was the thought that came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
As you write something down.
All right, that's a bit of fun, eh? So ultimately, it comes back to the need for control. Need to know. The need to feel safe. So ultimately, all of these become intertwined. We live our entire life needing to create an element of feeling safe. And that's different for different people, especially between men and women. So when we look at the need for control, control is just a construct that we buy into. We're trying to control what people think when we know that we can't. We're going to control an outcome when we know that it's not 100% up to us. There's an element of chance, there's an element of fate, destiny, the universe, whatever you want to call it. So when we buy into the need for control, well, we buy into a construct, which is one just based on expectation and attachment. So based on expectation and attachment. So ultimately, what we begin to become aware of to be able to surrender is the need for control. So how do we get ultimate control in life?
By not controlling anything.
Mm-hmm. The paradox of control is when we live our life in surrender, we have control of our life. The whole point is when we create the need for it, well, then we actually push it further away.
Mm.
And we create I hope this will happen. Well, that's just creating attachment to the outcome. I hope they will react in this way. Because then that comes from fear of loss. And that also creates a mechanism of focusing on what you lose rather than what you gain from that instance. So it's like, do you value your relationship with Megan?
Yes, highly.
Yeah, and imagine if that could evolve to an even deeper level now that she was no longer going to be your boss.
Yeah.
You see, what we consistently do is we focus on what we could lose rather than what we could gain out of having that conversation.
Mm.
And even if that conversation went the opposite of what you hoped, well, then that would then create space in your life to be able to have a different relationship with someone else. Or it would also create the context of understanding where you actually sat with that person.
Yep.
Either way, what we do is we live our entire life creating these expectations and attachments to things that show up in our life, which just limit our experience. And it all comes down to the need of control. And what's the foundation of the need for control? Well, the need to be safe. So how do women feel safe?
I like to know I have a roof over my head.
Mm-hmm.
There's food on my table.
Mm-hmm. And when was the last time that you felt physically unsafe?
Ooh, physically unsafe. I can't remember. Possibly walking at night close to my local train station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when was the last time you did that?
About a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what we can begin to become aware of is for men, the last time they felt physically unsafe is most likely when they're a kid. So what we can begin to become aware of is that when we're looking at safety for women, it's safety of like physical safety, the primary thing that we start to look at. And that physical safety comes from a construct of a belief that they're going to be looked after. So what we can begin to become aware of is, well, whether you're conscious of it or not, one of the patterns that women consistently run is creating an environment for them which is safe. And that comes from being physically safe. So when we look at that in terms of relationships, women unconsciously start to look for relationships where they can feel safe because people are going to create that environment for them. Generally, that's going to occur with anyone in a dominant position, which can be a position of a boss, or it can be a position in terms of a partner. Because ultimately, what all women want is just to feel safe. And who provides that for them?
Their circle.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that circle may be.
Mm. So the reality is, as soon as that changes, that dynamic changes, well, the risk there is not based on the fear of those things. It's the risk of the fear of, well, am I still going to be safe? If we look at that in terms of a personal relationship with someone's partner, consistently, what will occur with a lot of females is we go through different phases of, all right, I want to be a strong, independent woman, and I still want to be looked after at the same time. Sound familiar?
Oh yeah, always.
So it's this contrasting thing, or this dualistic mentality of, I want to be a strong, independent woman, and at the same time, I still want to be made to be felt safe based on the partner that I'm with.
No wonder you guys get confused.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like every single man thinks that women are just another version of men. And every single woman thinks that every man is just another version of a woman.
No.
When the reality is it's two completely different people, two completely different thought processes.
Very much so.
So what's safety then for men?
Financial security.
Close. It's just being able to provide. You see, with women, they consistently want to do one thing all day, every day. They want to feel safe, and they think that the way that they do that is by pleasing people. And the same thing happens for men, except they want to provide for people. So they feel safe if they're providing. They feel like they're worthy if they're providing. The same thing for women, except pleasing. And the same thing goes regardless of whether it's a relationship with a partner or a relationship with a person in a position of power.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the frame of reference with Megan, it's like, well, ultimately you just want to please her so that you can still create that same relationship in the future.
Yeah.
So men need to provide, women need to please. And then ultimately both of those people, both of those instances make it wrong. It's like, oh, well, no, I shouldn't just need to provide for the family. I can do this, I can do that. Or I shouldn't need to please. I can just be who I am.
But is that not part of who you are?
Yeah, it is. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The whole point is then you start to make a primal drive of yours wrong. You see, the reason why this comes up and the need to please comes up for women all the time is because, well, that's how you remain safe over the last 20,000 years. You see, the world for that time frame has been very difficult for women because the reality is men have the ability to overpower women physically. That's it. So then your entire system of how you see the world based on all of your ancestors is based on, right, well, if I please this man in my life, then they can protect me from other men. So what we can then do is if we know that that's the automatic thing that comes up, we can become aware of that and we can begin to actually let go of that. Because we know that it comes up. The limitation is not it coming up. The limitation is us getting into the emotion of it.
Yeah.
Because instantly, if we feel that we're going to lose that element of safety, well, what do we start to do? Well, we start to automatically go into our inner critic where it's going to run off to the races with this entire thought process of worst case scenarios.
Please no.
Yeah. But then that's automatically what comes up, right? We instantly just go, all right, oh my God, this is going to happen. Oh my God. And then she's going to do this and she's going to do that.
Yeah.
And especially for women, because that's part of like your greatest strength. It's like you have a multifaceted brain where you can have all of these different things going on at once and have all of these things, different things playing in your mind. And that becomes your greatest strength, but it also becomes the thing that holds you back at the same time. Because your brain goes into 10 different tangents at once about this one thing. It's just like, oh, well, if I change gyms, then this is going to happen, this, and then this will happen, and this will happen, and then I'll feel sad, and then I'll get stressed, and then I won't be safe in terms of where I am financially, and then what will those people think of me? What are they going to think of me? Are they going to think of me like this? Oh, I hated them anyway. Like, seriously, why did I even start working there in the first place?
I have the issue where that happens, but I also, the logic kicks in, and logic and reason and the overthinking, they kind of go back and forth a bit, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know what's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just the balance between like the masculine and the feminine. And what occurs is that logic comes in because you're in business. It means that you're used to switching into that while you're at work.
Yeah.
So if we understand that these basic processes consistently come up for us, Well, we can just go through the process of actually getting to the point of letting go of that. Because what occurs is when you surrender, you actually create the ultimate control in your life, which is the paradox of control, because we think that if I create a hold on something, then I control it. When the reality is, you might be able to hold on to it for a period of time, but eventually it's just going to resist and then run away. You try and hold on to, like, you try and catch a bird or something, you might catch it, but the more that you try and hold on to it, the more that it's going to resist and eventually fly away. Whereas if you were to create an element of surrender of just like put some bird seed on your hand or something, and you fed it every day, well, who's in control there? So when we think about something that we're making wrong based on an attachment to being safe and creating an expectation, that becomes what we can begin to actually let go of. It's letting go of the attachment or the expectation. When we think about how we respond in certain situations on an archetypal level, on a primal level, that will continue. The limitation comes from the levels of attachment that we go into. It comes from the story and the neurosis that we instantly fall into afterwards. So if we know that that primal human need is going to come up to survive, we can instantly begin to become aware of it and let go of it. So if you notice, all right, well, I'm going to try, this is interesting. Oh yeah, I definitely want to please Megan. I want to please my partner. Or I want to please this person. I want them to like me. Because if they like me, well, then they're going to allow me to stay safe in this environment. If we notice that come up, well, we can choose, all right, well, yeah, cool. One of my greatest strengths can be then my ability to be able to please people.
I've always been a teacher's pet and the parents' best friends.
And that's the thing, that becomes the greatest strength until it's carried to the extreme, then it becomes a weakness.
Yeah.
The whole point is, if we instantly just start to make that need to please wrong, well, then that just starts to push it down or resist it. And we look at this for women being a primary driver because that is how you created the mechanism of safety throughout eons of time. So we don't make the pleasing wrong, we create the concept of non-attachment to pleasing. We begin to let go of the need to please. We can choose to please in any instance in which we choose. And we can begin to be aware of how quickly that comes up. How quickly do we go into that story of, well, like, perfect example is like, if someone does something, or they're just like, their physiology changes, their body language just changes. For females, it instantly creates this mechanism of, did I do something wrong?
Straight up.
Are you angry at me? I'm sorry, what did I do? What can I do to make it better? We instantly go into that pleasing mechanism. We instantly go, oh no, what have I done wrong? Because then you're at risk of being unsafe. Because the mechanism that you've created around being with that person, whether that's a friend, whether that's a colleague, whether that's a partner, that mechanism comes up of, all right, well, what happens now if that person's gone? My entire construct of the world of how I felt safe is being at risk now. So what happens in that instance? What do we do? Do we use our logical brain, or do we go into the emotional side of it?
This happened for me last week. And I've got one client who, over Christmas when I was away, he had a trial with another of the PTs, and he actually asked me, because his work's going to change and he's not going to be able to train at the same times as me. He asked for my opinion, and we've been in complete talks with it. I suggested he train with this other female PT at the gym. I got back, and I knew there was always a possibility that he would maybe go train with her, and that's fine. I spoke to this other PT about that, and it was all above board. And then anyway, he came back and he said, oh, something was said about maybe you, as in me, couldn't actually train me the way that I wanted. I was like, excuse me? I can definitely get the results that he's asking for. And I said, no. I said, if you did prefer Joe's particular style, then, she would definitely be a good pick for you. Anyway, it went just straight into my head, and Joe was, I went and had a coffee to just try and sort it out, which was because she was busy with a client. But I came back and I had a chat to her, and I just said, so this was said. And she goes, I know exactly the thing that you're meaning. I think he's actually misconstrued it. This is not the case. And we cleared the water with it. But had I not actually spoken to her, my God, my brain. Just, yeah.
And why is that?
She's a friend.
Mm-hmm. And what's the difference between how the guy responded and how you responded?
He was confused because, he's as clients are, they trust that you know what you're talking about in order to get them from A to B. And he was confused that maybe he thought I wasn't being 100% honest with him. And I felt hurt by that. But I also know that this particular person sometimes doesn't quite understand concepts as they're spoken, just how he is, which is why I needed to go talk to Joe to actually see what was said, because it was apparently that she had said it. Yeah.
So what we want to look at is the difference, again, here between men and women and how they relate things.
Yeah.
You see, men have something that women don't in this instance. And might be something uncomfortable to hear at first, but then we'll go into why that occurs and why that's allowed women to remain safe in that instance. So men have what we call honor, which is what women don't have. So the reason why women don't have honor is because it wasn't conducive to how they had their survival mechanisms. Because they had created a more important connection to anything except the children over everything else first. So that means that everything else just goes to the side. It means all friends, everything else gets pushed to the side to look after the children as part of the survival mechanism. So what occurs for men is, it's like, if that's what I'm accountable for and that's what I'm responsible for, and that's what I need to provide for, then that's what I'll do, regardless of whether I'm fighting with that person or not. So in a partnership, in a loving relationship, like the husband and the wife, the husband will still provide even if he's fighting with his wife at that moment. Whereas the primal focus of the wife in that instance is, well, I have to protect the children because they're more important than anything else. Make sense so far? So what we can begin to become aware of is in that instance, as a female has that experience, what occurs is, if it's between two friends, well, females are more than happy if they're fighting to go behind their back and do something, or gossip, or do something, because it's part of the survival mechanism of that. That's why some women do that so much. And you'll see women that consistently gossip all the time because that's how they create their survival mechanism. It's like, it's part of the conducive environment of tall poppy syndrome. So this comes back right to a primal drive level to create this mechanism of survival. So in the instance with you, it's like, did she just say that about me? And that instantly triggers that thing of like, can I even trust her then? Well, the reality is it's a miscommunication where it's gone through one mechanism of distortion to your client back to you. So it's got too many distortions in there that it's just been misconstrued. The reality is the mechanism of that comes from the same place though. Because women are more likely to do that as a mechanism of survival. And you'll all know someone in your life that consistently just gossips about everyone, because that's part of their mechanism of survival. It's how they create the element of worth. Does that make sense? What do you take out of that?
I see how that works. I see that as a typically female trait. Then yes, that is the case. It can be the case. You know, there is the oh, sorry, cat hair. No, yeah, it is definitely a thing, having the honor in the men and not so much with the women. Yeah.
And it's just being aware of that mechanism.
Yeah.
Because for men don't just talk. Like, we just don't talk. Whereas women are more than happy to talk about all of these different things and all the different topics and exactly what's going on. So it's believable that they would do that.
Yeah.
Whereas if a man did that, he'd be like, and?
Yeah.
The whole point is, the difference there is the man has not had his safety threatened, whereas the woman in that instance has. Because it hasn't changed the mechanism of providing, but it has changed the mechanism of pleasing if it was in an instance of a woman.
Yeah.
So it all comes back down to those primary drivers. And whenever we think about these things, well, every single man and every single woman has a certain balance of masculine and feminine energy. So to have a balance of both of these. So women in business tend to have more of a need to provide. That's while they're at work as well, but then it's more of a need to please when they're at home. So it's understanding these foundational drivers, because provide is the masculine energy, and then the feminine is the need to please. So it's balancing those two things. You might have a 50-50 split, or you might be a 90-10 split at work and then a 10-90 split at home. The whole point is we live our entire life as a masculine energy that comes from the need to provide. So that means that if a male partner is not providing, well, then he sees that he lacks self-worth. the ultimate shame for a man, what is it? It's not being able to show emotion. And if that's driven by the need to provide, and those two things become connected, well, that's where it's why you see a lot of male suicides for people who've lost their jobs.
Mm.
If they can't express their emotions because there's shame around that, and they can't provide for their family, well, they just move into guilt and then eventually shame around that too.
Mm.
If we look at this, the feminine energy of the pleasing, well, if a man is not providing, then he's going to look for ways to try and please then, because he's tapped into his feminine energy even more then, because he's not tapped into the masculine here. So this consistently sways from one side to the other based on wherever someone's at. If a woman becomes a provider in a household, well, then she turns on this masculine energy so much more. She becomes a provider, which is going partially against what her greatest strength is, which can be to please.
Mm.
And when we look at the femininity movement and things of that nature, well, it's an ineffective movement, because what feminists are trying to prove is that women are equal to men. Are women equal to men?
Not in all instances.
No, they're far superior. There are so many things that women can do that men can't. So the whole femininity movement is trying to bring themselves down to the level of which men are at. It's the stupidest movement ever. They're actually bringing themselves down and discounting all of the things that are like their greatest strengths. That's not to say that they can't hold high-ranking positions in companies or have their own company and do all the things that men can do. The whole point is, until they start to see themselves as being actually worthy for who they actually are, well, then they're just going to consistently pull themselves down even more. There can be then an extreme cost in terms of that if women start to think that they can do too much. Because the needs of a woman in business don't change in terms of their need to please or be the woman of the house or whatever it is. If they're in business, that just gets added on top of everything else. If a man provides, well, then he's predominantly just providing. There's very little that he's going to be doing in terms of pleasing. So if we understand these foundational archetypal drives, well, then we can actually become aware of, well, cool, that's just part of who I am. I have the ability to please. The limitation comes from the need to please, the attachment to pleasing, to connecting that with my safety. The whole point is providing versus pleasing just becomes one of the other things that we're looking at in terms of what's the balance of it. Because if you're not providing, then you think that you need to please. And this is a variable which changes based on the area of your life. If you're providing financially, well, then your needs to please in that area isn't necessarily as high. Just understanding what's the balance of that. And the limitation comes from when you're making that wrong of where you're at. There are men which can be stay-at-home dads. There are women that can be the provider. It's not wrong or right, it's just different. It's just understanding that there's a balance required there of both things. You can go against the natural tendency of those things, and then there's just an impact of that. And you can embrace whatever your greatest strength is, and then double down on that. And then your ability to be able to actually get into flow there is dramatically higher. So what it comes down to is, what are your predominant tendencies? Because whatever your predominant tendency is your strength. If you're a pleaser, awesome, embrace it. That allows you to connect with people on a deeper level. If you're a provider, embrace it. That allows you to have the ambition to be able to create ultimately what you want to create in your life. And what we can begin to become aware of is, with our partners, do we look for what is missing? Because what we notice is, with strong, independent women, well, they want to provide for themselves. They don't want to be dependent on no man. So they live their entire life proving that they can provide for themselves. And then at the same time, want to be in a relationship where they can be provided for, where they can be needed. So it becomes another one of these opposing things that are fighting in two different directions. And it comes back to getting into that balance and that flow of that. Understanding that the limitation only ever comes from the need to provide or the need to please. When we create non-attachment to those things, we begin to let go of that need. The reality is, in every aspect of life, there's one thing that'll allow us to move to the next level. Just one thing. It's just the letting go. It's the surrendering of it. It's the letting go of the need to do something. If you let go of the need for control and you embrace surrender, well, then you actually gain control in your life, because you've let go of the need of something. If you let go of the need to be right, if you let go of the need to look good, if you let go of the need to avoid looking bad, our life becomes a progressive expression of surrendering the things and the beliefs that we've bought into that are creating limitation in every area of our life unknowingly for us. And often on a primal level, on an archetypal level. These things that have been ingrained in us throughout the generations and generations and generations. And we can begin to let go of that. And when we begin to let go of the need for it, we actually begin to experience the thing that we ultimately craved and wanted and needed. Because we've created non-attachment to it. You see, the limitation is what most people do is, especially women, is, all right, I need to be a strong, independent woman. And then I go to the other side of that and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to be detached from being a strong, independent woman. I go from one extreme to the other. Go through an experience of, all right, well, I'm going to please here and that's awesome. And then something happened and the person that I created my safety from was taken away from me from some reason. So now I'm going to step into the opposite. I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum and I'm going to be the provider because I don't need no man. The whole point is it's the same swing, just from one to the other. When you're in a partnership kind of relationship, well, what you're allowing the other person to do is whatever their strength is. So that can be, as a female, to please, as a male, to provide something. Now that can be still providing, being the stay-at-home dad. The whole point is, if the masculine energy requires for it to feel safe to provide, well, you look for ways that that person can do that. If the natural tendency for the feminine energy is to please, well, you look for ways where that can be facilitated for that person. Because ultimately, if that person doesn't feel safe in that instance, well, they go back to their archetypal responses. They go back to the inner child. They go back to being the victim. Because then they at least get attention, right? But then if in that instance where you had that conversation with your client and for the next 2 or 3 hours, you didn't have a mechanism of being pleased, of pleasing someone, or you didn't think that you pleased someone, it's like you come to the next client, they come in, they're angry, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? You go home to your partner, it's just like they're in a bad mood. Oh my God, what did I do? And then your partner's like, I haven't seen you all day. How can you do anything to me? Obviously, it's not you. But then when that, for a woman in that energy, if the person who creates that mechanism of safety for that person is stressed, well, then you get stressed as well. It's just that nurturing instinct. If kids are upset, then the mother gets upset. It's just how it works. It's part of that nurturing. It's part of that ability to be able to create an experience which actually creates the survival of our human race. We can begin to become aware of these two driving forces and let go of the need to do it and just allow yourself to create that pleasing mechanism. Do you cook much, Stacey?
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. Because I love cooking and love making people full.
Mm-hmm. You love pleasing. Alicia, did you cook food for, just before we go, did you cook food for Stu, yeah?
It comes and goes in waves.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to, and then I flip-flop between I can't be bothered and I like to. When I was dieting, I was pretty on point with being the feeder. But yeah, I definitely flip-flop.
So the whole point is we go from pleasing to providing. And the need to please there is one of the predominant ways that you can please someone is with food. Why is it that grandmas are always like, here, have some food?
That's my whole female family line.
Yeah.
I was born into it.
All right. I have to go. Thank you, guys. Yeah. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Alicia. Catch you then.
Good luck, Stacey.
Thank you.
Bye.
So the whole point is we can be aware that what are the things that we know that please people, and food is one of those things.
That's why I started hospitality. That was my first. That's why I did my uni degree in hospitality.
Yeah.
Got out real quick.
Yeah. The whole point is it just comes back to these primary drivers. Like, what are we providing in this instance? How are we pleasing people? How do you feel about pleasing, Brooke?
Man, I do both.
Mm-hmm.
I find pleasing easier than providing, so I make up for what I can't provide by pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
But then if I am providing, you hit the money before when you said if you're doing one, you sort of don't do so much of the other.
Mm.
So at the moment, why business is like that before, when business wasn't providing how I thought it should be, I was making up with it with pleasing by like spending time with her and always making sure that she was happy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Got to look after the provider, right?
Well, yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah.
Mm. And that's the thing. You just imagine it as being like, what percentage are you being in that instance? Are you being the provider, or are you being the pleaser?
Yep. Well, and I see it from Sarah as well. Like, I know she jokes about it sometimes, but sometimes she's saying it as a joke. She's saying it's for real, but she's a feeder. She's a pleaser. But then some days she's just like, it's almost like she knows it's a trigger for me to make out that she's the provider, because she has been. And she'll just be like, she'll go on strike almost, you know what I mean? But then she'd feel bad the next day and like cook twice as much, or like make sure that like there's no mess around the house if I'm working from home or whatever. Fascinating.
Because then it just goes from, all right, well, now I need to go and please him again.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, fuck you, I'm not going to provide for you. But then she has the guilt and goes back, all right, now I've got to go and please him. And this happens. Does it happen for you, Stacey? Like, you have an argument and then instantly you're like, all right, well, how do we make this better? How do I then make up for it?
I'm not an arguer. I'm pretty chill about most things, and we tend to talk a lot about different things. In saying that, when there have been negative situations, I do flip to, okay, how do we fix it? And what are steps to do better next time, or whatever it is.
So what's not arguing that?
Raising voices, firm words, being too stubborn to not hear.
Yeah, but what's a mechanism of not arguing in terms of these two?
Probably, yeah, pleasing.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it just comes back up, right? It's just another mechanism of pleasing. The whole point is you get to choose to instantly go into an irrational rant and yelling and take it to the absolute extreme, but then that's not necessarily who you are. So it's just like, well, you provide the element of then being able to please in that instance to be able to have the make-up conversation. It's still the same mechanism though. The natural tendency for you is just to go, all right, well, how can I get this to where I want it? How can I make this all better? How can we be a safe family unit again? It's interesting to think about, isn't it? So it all comes back down to just understanding just the surrender of it, the surrender of the need for something, the surrender of the need to have control in an instance, the need to know, the need to feel safe. These become the primary things that we start to look at. If we understand the drivers behind them and we begin to let go of that on the first level of attachment that shows up, well, then it has zero impact on us. The limitation is when we get into attachment about attachment and then our inner critic goes off in this huge tangent around it. So the example is for a woman, that instant response of someone just seeing their body language change and they think that it's about them. So I would hazard a guess that if you came home, Brooke, and you're in a bad mood, Sarah would be like, what did I do wrong?
I was just about to say that there was a period there when I was in a bit of a habit of having those Coles cookies, the 45% extra chopped chip.
Yeah.
And but one day like every night I was like I'd have a crack in the box, And then I said to Sarah, I said, all right, no more. Like I'm committing myself to not eating them anymore. But then it was like in some of those tough times where, she'd bring me during the day and I was in a bit of a pity party going, blah, blah, they didn't sign or whatever. She'd come home every night with a fucking box of cookies. I was like, why are you buying these cookies? And because I was in a pity party, I'd just eat them, right? But then I'd blame her. I was like, stop buying the cookies. But I was still the one responsible. But she just knew instantly how to be able to put a smile on my face because she knew that I was not in a good mood. So when you say that, she was obviously taking on my vibe, personally for her, how can I make him happy? How can I do that where it was nothing to do with her?
My mum did a very similar thing. She used to buy me chocolate, but not just one block of chocolate, like 4 blocks of chocolate. She would just drop off at my house. I'm like, Mum, this sits in my cupboard. I'm going to eat it. Can you buy me avocados instead? Because she just wouldn't not bring something. I had to actually give her something else to bring so she could still bring something.
Yeah. And one of the things that you want to notice in your instance, Brooke, is if you then yell, why did you bring that to me? How did she respond?
Oh, that's like, I made that mistake a few times too. That's like, so I just did something nice for you and now you want to yell at me? What? I'm like, I'm not yelling. And then it would just spiral out of control from there. Like, I'm not even yelling. I just said, babe, I'm having a joke. Like, why are you buying the cookies? And then, that was just, man. Yeah.
The whole point is, what occurs in that instance is she's done something to bring the safety back in.
Yeah.
And then you've become the trigger or the danger area because you raised your voice.
Yeah.
So now she's like, well, now I'm not even safe in my home. I came back to make the peace. I came with a peace offering and I got my head shot off.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man, you're bringing up some good stuff here. Ooh.
And then what happens? What happens in that instance? What's her response? Is it just that, or is it then, I've been providing for you, I've been doing all of this, blah, 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 and then it pulls you back down and it's going around in the cycle, right? This is the foundation of an argument.
Yeah, it's almost I've triggered her and then she knows all my, it's almost like she instinctively knows all my triggers and she just throws them all back in.
Yep. And then that's what happens, because that's how she gets her power. It goes back to that gossip component.
And then I walk away like a child and go and have a shower, and then I come back down to like a nice meal and then a cup of tea and a cookie.
Yeah, because then it's gone back through the cycle, back into pleasing.
Yeah.
The whole point is it consistently just plays out over and over and over again. If you understand what the source mechanism of that is, well, what can you do? You can begin to let go of it and not fall into the cycle.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is then, oh, you come down and you're like, oh, thanks, babe. And then she asks you something about your day. And then you go, oh, it was good. And you go, how was your day? And then she goes off in this half an hour tangent about her day and every single detail about her day. And then she goes, so tell me about your day. And you're like, yeah, it was good. I did this and that was it. And she's like, why don't you want to talk to me? And then the tangent starts again, right? We're back into another cycle.
Her big one. So you teach people how to communicate, and you can't even communicate.
That's
and
a good
I'm
one.
like, I just want to blow up. Like, you can't say that shit, babe. I communicate with you like this, and I communicate with you like that. Just because I just want to have some time to myself doesn't mean that I can't communicate. Oh,
It's interesting, isn't it?
it is.
The whole point is if you understand the foundational dynamics of what the thought processes are of people, wherever they're at, whether it's in a certain developmental stage of their life or whether it's based on where they sit in terms of the masculine, feminine energy, whether they're a male or a female, and what the balance sits of that, you can just understand what's really going on unconsciously for them.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is communication builds trust, right? That's why in that instance, the woman normally spews out all of this random information because she thinks she's building trust. But then you give back, yeah, it was good. I did this. I had a conversation here and I had an appointment and then I went to the gym and then I came home.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like me in a conversation with me and my partner, to be honest. It's flipped the other way for us.
Yeah. And then that just comes down to what the balance is in that instance. It's still the same thing because that's why we're like, well, men generally have a predominance of this and here. And it also, like, if you go on a deeper level, it's based on how many words they've communicated throughout the day as well. Because if you're interacting with like your clients all day, chances are you don't really want to talk at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But if that person has had, if it's a guy and they've had transition time, so that means that you've come home, he's come home, he's had time to himself, and then he has a conversation with you, he's going to talk all he wants. But if he comes straight home, he's not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of time to be able to transition in.
Yeah.
Or he gets changed. You come home and get changed?
Yeah.
So it's called like transition time because men predominantly have like one focused brain. If they're in the uniform, then they're in work mode.
Yeah.
They change their clothes and they're in gym mode. They're in other clothes, then they're in home mode. So there's that.
I came up to the Gold. I worked yesterday morning, facilitated, and then I drove to the Gold Coast, where Sarah and her cousin all that were, and then I met up with them for lunch at the surf club at Beach yesterday, and I had my collared shirt and chinos on and stuff, and couldn't relax the whole lunch. I need to go and like put my shorts on. As soon as I'd eaten, I just said, "Oh, babe, have you got the keys?" So I went straight to the car, got my shorts, jumped in the water, and then I was good. But before that, I was kind of hard to relax,
And that's the thing. We instantly associate like where we are, the clothes that we have, and the time of day with what state we're actually going to be in. We're conditioned to do that.
Yeah.
All of these routines instantly come up for us, whether we're aware of it or not. So if we understand that every single thing that we do is based on a need for control, which is based on the need to be safe, well, then that's what we then get to let go of. Because again, we can be safe in every instance. And we can also notice that automatically what comes up is, if I'm not providing or I'm not pleasing, well, then I'm not safe. Do you guys see that? If you're not providing or you're not pleasing, then you're not safe.
Yeah.
Because what you've done is you've created this association between pleasing or providing as being your mechanism that allows you to be safe.
Yeah.
Because it's the balance of the feminine and the masculine. If the provider is providing, well, then they need someone to then please them. If neither is providing, well, then there's no balance. It can be either party. The whole point is one provides, one pleases in an effective relationship. If you're both trying to always provide or both trying to always please, it becomes stress, upset. The whole point is...
I've always been triggered by like being like my self-worth based on being providing. But then when you put it like this, it's like primal for me to want to be a provider, but then I've always beaten myself up for wanting to be a provider. Like you don't need to be the man of the house. But primarily I'm resisting that, so it's gonna be worse, right?
The whole point is survival for a man back in ancient times, our ancestors. The way that a man survived was by having a wife, because she would then do all the pleasing through sex, through food, through all of these things that kept the man alive. Without having a partner, it was a pretty tough life. And the same thing for her. Without having a husband, well, she wouldn't be protected by all the other men, from all the other men.
Yeah, of course. Shit, when you look at it like that.
So if you think about over tens of thousands of years where this has been the process, well, then it just becomes something that automatically comes up, whether you're aware of it or not. Like for men, they want to provide. It's as simple as that. For women, they want to please. And because we both have elements of masculine and feminine, we both want to do both things. It's just the balance of which we want to do them. You see, what occurs is this changes as well throughout life. When you become a king, well, then you want to please more in terms of the archetypal levels. So when you're in your late 40s and you've already made your money and you're doing all this, then it's like, right, well, I just want to please the people that are most important to me. It's not necessarily about providing. You've done that already. And you'll notice this when kids leave home. Like the dad goes from providing to like, right, well, I'm going to please them. I'm going to start doing things with my wife again. I'm going to start doing things for myself again and start buying things for my kids even more.
Midlife crisis car.
Yep. The point here is the same thing happens with women as well. It goes from pleasing to, all right, well, what can I provide for my family now. Now I can go back to work. Now I can provide something for myself. Now I can actually go to please myself rather than please everyone else.
Yeah.
So it switches. So as we become adults, we settle into, all right, well, which one's going to be my predominant one? And if you have a significant emotional event around a partner or some trauma, well, then that's going to play into it as well. Because you know that, all right, well, I have this construct of what safety was, and that was taken away from me. I'm going to own that now. Because I'm not going to get to a point again where I've done all of this work and then it's taken away. So what we begin to come aware of is how this becomes foundational to every thought or experience that we have. Then we can just apply that to any situation. We can apply that to, all right, well, if you've had someone in a masculine position who's been your boss, well, you consistently just want to please that person, right? You want their respect. You respect them, you want their respect. Which is why in that instance with you leaving the gym, it's like, well, you've got all these people that you respect. So you want their respect too. So you want to do it in an effective way. So it comes back to this. All right, well, how can I then please them in this? How can I not upset them so I can not upset my construct of what safety is in the world?
Sounds about right.
And that's just the thing that we can begin to become aware of.
Yeah.
And we can let go of the need for it.
Yeah.
We instantly notice when it comes up, and then we begin to let go of that need. Because as soon as we bring the logical brain into it, it's instantly, all right, well, I can be safe regardless.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions with that?
All good.
Sweet.
Very powerful.
Will that help in terms of that situation at work, Stacey?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
When are you going to have that conversation?
It needs to be tomorrow. She's going on holidays as of Saturday for 2 weeks, and there's a 90-day resignation period, and I'd like to not wait another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yep.
Sweet. You'll let me know when you've had that conversation?
Sure.
Sweet.
Yeah, I will.
Cool. All right. You guys need anything else from me then?
Good.
Got one. Just in the group chat. Did you put up the recording of last week?
I think so.
Cool.
If not, I'll chuck it in there now anyway.
Yep.
One more thing. Sorry. My direct debit bounced again this week. My bad. It's just been Christmas, so if you could please take it twice again.
Yeah, it's cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Too easy.
Awesome.
Until next week then.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.